Merry Christmas, everybody. Thanks for being here today.
Merry Christmas, Broncos country. It's Christmas Eve. The Broncos are at work. They're practicing. They're getting ready for yet another big game against the Cincinnati Bengals. We keep talking about big games. That's sort of what happens when you're a contending team. And this big one might be leaning a lot on the guy you see right there in the center of the shot. That's Audric Estime. You like having these big games, but at the same time, you know what? You got to get it done. You can have all the big games in the world, but if you don't get it done, what does it matter? Orange and blue today here on a Christmas Eve. Mace here with you, Cecil Lammey on assignment. You'll see him again later on in the week. Talking to you about the Broncos and where they stand right now. They were back at work today. Back to practice. It's what we say is a football Wednesday because, of course, the game is on Saturday. The normal rhythms of your week change a bit. Everything moves up. So today's a football Wednesday, and I look on the field, and what to my wondering eyes should appear but none other than Tyler Badie. That's right. We haven't heard from him since he suffered that back injury on that hit from Quincy Williams against the Jets back in week 4, and he was out there. The Broncos started the clock on returning Tyler Badie from injured reserve, and the Broncos have up to 21 days here to figure things out, whether to activate Tyler Badie from injured reserve or not. I just kind of lost my train of thought there for a moment. But Sean Payton kind of said something interesting today when he chatted with media, and he talked about sort of the roster moves and managing things, because I looked on the field and I saw Tyler Badie. I looked on the field and I did not see Levi Wallace. Levi Wallace was waived by the Broncos today, and very specifically waived when it's a vested veteran. It's a waiver process after the trading deadline. Of course, a few weeks ago, the Broncos let go of Josh Reynolds and the Jaguars claimed him off of waivers. So the Broncos waived Levi Wallace, which means you've got a roster spot there. Now, Sean Payton talked about potentially bringing Levi Wallace back to the practice squad if he passes through waivers. But a couple of things going on here to consider. So you've got Tyler Badie, a 21-day ramp up to a return. Now, he practiced full today, not limited, full. I think that's a very key thing as well. Usually with players coming back from injuries, whether they're coming back from injured reserve or they're on the PUP list, we have seen them be limited in that first practice back. Tyler Badie, full. The other thing that Sean Payton mentioned, it was something that even a few of us reporters were talking about among ourselves as we watch practice, not seeing Levi Wallace out there, is someone trying to claim Blake Watson. Of course, the Broncos kept Blake Watson on the 53 coming out of training camp. They rolled the dice in October. They waived him right around the time of the Saints Thursday night game in mid-October. And it was a gamble. He might not pass through, but he did. He passed through the practice squad. But this is the time of year when you usually see teams at the bottom of the standings looking at how to bolster the back ends of their rosters, and you see them plucking guys off the practice squad. So if somebody is interested in Blake Watson, who, by the way, was out there on the practice field today, the Broncos clearly still interested in him. Sean Payton has talked him up the last week or so, not only to us in the media, but also to Kirk Herbstreit and Al Michaels working in the Amazon broadcast for that Charger game last week. So clearly they still like what Blake Watson can bring. And worth noting that when Bo Nix was talking about the running backs today, when he was asked about specifically Audric Estime, he did make a point of mentioning others, including the others in the room, and others in the room would include someone like Blake Watson, last week's practice squad elevation.
Yeah, he played well. I thought all the backs played well. We ran the ball very efficiently early on in the game. Made a few conversions in the passing game, pickups in blitz pressures, and they played well. We're excited to see them carry that over, and especially him.
All the backs played well, and I want to have that comment, and we're going to play what Sean Payton said when I asked him specifically about Audric Estime a couple of days back. He pivoted in the course of his response to Blake Watson.
Yeah, I think he has. I think he played well. I was encouraged with the physicality he ran with. And I think, he'll only get better. So I was encouraged. Even Blake had some carries that were encouraging. So balancing that is going to be important for us here down the stretch.
It's a multiplayer solution that the Broncos are looking at right now. It's having plenty of possibilities here as they go into the last couple of weeks of the season and head into the postseason. It's also, I think, saying, hey, this thing's still wide open. You're waiting for somebody to come out and seize this job, that job of being the primary running back. Audric Estime looked early on last Thursday like he could handle the role. And then the Broncos kind of went away from that. But that being said, Estime, Blake Watson, Javonte Williams, all were involved. And for all that Sean Payton says about how it's tough to involve three running backs, after that first drive that culminated in Estime's touchdown, I said to a couple of people around me, looks like he figured it out. Figured out how to have three running backs all involved, all be effective on the same series. And that might have been the Broncos' most impressive drive of the season. And yet the after effect of that was, let's go away from the run. This is how little the Broncos ran over the course of that game, including that first drive when the Broncos came out, ran the ball down the Chargers' throat. Including that first drive, the Broncos only ran on 33% of their snaps last Thursday. That is the second lowest run percentage, and this includes QB scrambles, to be fair, the second lowest run percentage in a game in the Sean Payton era in Denver. The only game with a higher percentage of plays that were passes and a lower percentage of plays that were runs was last year against Minnesota. So it's been 22 games since the Broncos ran as little on a percentage basis as they did against the Chargers last week. And that's something that isn't the Broncos' primary path to victory. Colton Moore saying the running game needs to be a factor after the second quarter. Yes, ideally it absolutely is a factor after the second quarter. Ideally it's a factor after the first series. I get the frustration people have right now. I do. And I think when Sean Payton, when he's sitting there putting together his game plan, putting together that play sheet, which he's obviously not happy about Amazon being able to zoom in and see it, but you kind of signed up for that, coach. You did. You signed up for cameras everywhere when you signed up for the NFL. And those cameras are going to zoom and they're going to see everything. But when you run it with 3 exclamation points, there's a conscious thought to knowing exactly what it is you have to do. I would say this. I am encouraged by the fact that he thought enough to put it down there. Of course, it's sort of the old cliche, admitting the problem is the first step, right? Admitting that you need to run. That's the first step to figuring things out. That's the first step to making it work. That you've already said, okay, we need to do this. Well, there you go. But you have to actually go ahead and do it. You have to stick with it. It's sort of like on Seinfeld. You know how to take the reservation. You don't know how to hold the reservation. That's really the most important part, the hold. Anybody can just take. Anybody can just say, run it. And make a game plan to run, but you actually have to do it and you have to stick with it. Now, one thing this coming Saturday in Cincinnati that might compel the Broncos to stick with it is the forecast. Temperatures not going to be an issue. You get a little nervous at this time of year. You might get a frigid day. You're not going to get that on the banks of the Ohio River. It's going to be in the mid-50s at kickoff, probably dropping into the upper 40s as the game goes from a late afternoon kickoff time, Eastern time in Cincinnati, to a night game. But it's going to be raining, kind of like it was against the Jets. A rainy day there along the Ohio River. And that should encourage the Broncos to run the ball more. It may take a little bit of the oomph out of the Cincinnati Bengals high wattage passing game, which we're going to get into later on in the week, because another good sign today was Riley Moss practicing full for the Broncos, and they're going to need him because that passing game this year, it's done some scary things, and nobody in the league as a combination is playing pitch and catch better than Joe Burrow and Jamar Chase right now. That's so anything that could potentially take a little bit of the edge off that passing game, that could downgrade it just a bit, like a rainy day and perhaps some wind accompanying that might be helpful to the Broncos. But at the same time, you got to prepare for the rain. And don't forget, with Audric Estime, a reason why you haven't seen much of him is because he had a case of the fumbles preseason and into the regular season as well, actually reaching a point where a couple of months back, the Broncos had Audric Estime carrying a football everywhere he went in the facility. When he went to meetings, when he went to lunch, like he'd sit there, he has the tray in one hand and he has a football in the other. And his teammates were given the instruction, punch that ball out. Don't care where it is. In the meeting room, in the hallway, in the locker room, in the chow hall, try to punch that ball out. Well, he hasn't had a fumble since then. But yeah, damp things up like you're going to have in Cincinnati on Saturday. It's fair to think about this and wonder if it's going to affect Audric Estime a bit. Here's what Audric had to say about the potentially raining conditions on Saturday in Cincinnati.
But we got to be cautious. We got to play smarter. Coach Payton said he's going to have extra gloves with us on that sideline, so we got to be able to take advantage of that opportunity he's given us, and you just got to keep in your mind that they're going to be trying to get the ball out like I do every game, but just have two hands on it and just do what I do, and no matter what the conditions are, we got to get a win.
Two hands on it. Protect that football. Now, that might take a little bit of explosiveness off of it, but that's okay. That's fine. You don't want him holding that ball out like a loaf of bread. Don't want to see that at all. Don't want to see that at all. Teammates are pretty excited about Audric Estime, though, and how he's playing. Like you heard from Bo Nix earlier, let's hear from Adam Troutman talking about what he thinks Audric Estime brings to the ground game.
I think he brings a certain mindset when he's in there. He's obviously a big physical runner, and when he gets the first contact, it's not going to probably bring him down, whether he runs through it or runs through it or just like carries it for a while. So, yeah, I think it's a mindset thing, but yeah, he's running really hard, and we're excited about it.
Running really hard and mindset. The other thing Adam Troutman said like a moment later as he continued answering that question was talked about, how it gives everybody a boost because, everyone's out there doing their blocks up front, but there's always somebody that's unblocked into play. It's the simple calculus of the game when you've got a quarterback and the running back. You take the quarterback out because he's handing off the ball, and it's 11 defenders against your 10 guys trying to make your 10 guys, and really 9 guys because the quarterback's handed off, trying to make it work. Somebody's coming unblocked. Audric Estime brings the potential of running through that because he is such a dynamic and powerful runner, and he's got some burst to him. And really, you could sort of say, hey, he runs through people in much the same way that Javonte Williams did before the injury, and you'd like to see happen again, but it's getting pretty late for Javonte Williams, and here we are. If the Broncos don't make the playoffs, he's actually down to the last 2 games of his rookie contract. So And the fact is now that you're talking about Tyler Badie as well also in there, and you're talking about the Broncos liking what they see in Blake Watson, they've got options here. They have the ability to look around. Jaleel McLaughlin, by the way, did practice today. He was limited today. Tyler Badie full, Jaleel McLaughlin limited. Take note of that as we get into the rest of the week. Noah asking, what up, Mace? Hey, what's up? Merry Christmas. Happy holidays. Sean Payton, run it. Sean Payton needs a bigger note on his Cheesecake Factory menu. Oh gosh. Yeah, that was a big play sheet. That was a big play sheet. By the way, you say Estime, your mom says edamame. I'm glad you remember that. By the way, he got quite a chuckle out of that when I brought it up today. He appreciates. See, he loves the support coming from Broncos country and fans all over, including my beloved mother down there in Florida. But yeah, he said he'd never heard he's heard his name said a bunch of ways, hasn't heard his name said that way before. Always something new. Dev saying, use the running game to keep the Bengals' potent offense on the sideline. Yes, this is going to be a pace and tempo game for the Broncos. This is going to be a game where you want to see some 6-7 minute drives, chew the clock, limit the amount of opportunities for Joe Burrow and company. Joey, the only times I've written a reminder and taped on my screen is when I made the same mistake more than once. Okay. Sean Payton's got a lot of experience at this play calling thing, and his background is with running backs. You go way back. He was a running backs coach in college and pro in the 1990s. Of course, was the running backs coach for one Marshall Faulk at San Diego State before he began his Hall of Fame NFL career with the Colts and later on the St. Louis Rams. You wonder if he's going to put that again. Or maybe the key is put on the other side. The side, but then again, you're flipping the play sheet over. Maybe you put it on your hand, run it. Now you'd have to do it in Sharpie for this game because the rain is going to wash it out. David, in the beginning of the season, Sean said that in order for a rookie quarterback to succeed, he had to have a good run game. Run game and defense, the two things that Sean Payton said can best support a rookie quarterback. I asked him about that the day they drafted Bo Nix. Defense and running game. The defense has been shaky this month. No doubt about that. The run game, it hasn't been used perhaps to the frequency that you are hoping it can be used. So the Bronco, it's commitment. Run game is attitude, right? It's like tchotchkes in Office Space. It's about the atmosphere and the attitude. And speaking of attitude, boy, I had that segue in my mind before I did the show, and I'm actually glad that I thought about it. I'm glad I remembered as I do this live show here, rolling solo here with you on Christmas Eve. Attitude is something that Audric Estime talked about today, his own attitude, what he brings, because I asked him about sort of what kind of rhythm you get into when they're giving you the ball, you know, knowing that, hey, you've got to be respectful of your place on a team, especially with a lot of veterans around, respectful of your place with the coaches. But hey, there's that thing beating within you. Like, man, I want the ball. Give me the ball. Here's Audric Estime, what he said to me about attitude and what kind of goes through his mind as he gets going.
Oh, yeah. So, I do got to know my place. I'm a rookie. My first year here, but when I get in that mode and I'm doing well, I feel like that brings energy, the attitude that this offense needs, and I'm just going to keep on bringing it, honestly, and hopefully I just keep on getting the ball.
Energy and attitude the whole offense needs. It's not just what he brings. It's like he feels like, okay, I'm providing what this offense could use most. Man, there's a lot to that, especially considering what the Broncos are trying to do. You're playing some meaningful games now because as Adam Troutman said last week, you're not going to succeed without any kind of run game.
It's a huge deal. If you can't run the ball in late December and into the playoffs, you can't win games because obviously Kansas City's already clinched too. When you look at the playoffs necessarily, you're going to be going somewhere that's probably cold unless you can get up and play an indoor team. But you're probably going to be going somewhere cold, so and it might be snowing, it might be negative 25 degrees. Like, you never know. So you have to be able to run the ball. It's obviously the most important thing, I think, offensively in the playoffs.
Running the ball is the most important thing. That's Adam Troutman last week. Sean Payton writing "run it" in all caps with 3 exclamation points on his play sheet. Audric Estime talking about the fact that with the style of running that he has, what he gets going kind of brings an attitude and a presence to the offense that it could use. We're sitting here today on Christmas Eve, a little under 4 days out from Broncos Bengals, and everybody seems to know what this team has to do. Everybody in that building knows that they've got to run it, stick with it, be successful at it. You've got a you've got a run blocking offensive line, that for a good chunk of the season has been number 1 in the league in run block win rate. As I look it up right now here to see where the Broncos still stand, because of course they updated today over at ESPN.com. And guess what? Interesting. Whoa. All right. We got a little change. They're number 3 in run block win rate. They're still pretty good. They're number 1 in pass block win rate. Doing good work. Now, number 1 in pass block win rate, considering that you've gone up against guys like Joey Bosa and DeForest Buckner and Myles Garrett the last few weeks, says a lot. We'll get into Trey Hendrickson, the Bengals edge rusher, and what he brings, but the Broncos keep passing tests against those edge rushers, so you're trusting the pass blocking. And again, the Broncos are the only team sitting here, or one of 2 teams, sitting here that is in the top 5 according to ESPN analytics, and both, the other being the Baltimore Ravens, and of course they've got Derrick Henry back there. The Broncos, by the way, have 3 running backs who are each averaging over 4.5 yards a carry. That's pretty good. Jaleel McLaughlin averages north of 4.5 a carry. So does Audric Estime, who you've heard from on this show. And so does Tyler Badie, who was back at practice today for the first time in nearly 3 months. So you've got some people there. You've got some guys who can get it done. I feel like I'm going to sound like Lou Saban, former Broncos coach. You can get it done. You can get it done. What's more, you got to get it done. That's what we need here. Williams saying Estime should be at least decent at pass blocking, right? Look at the size of the dude. He can at least get in the way. He can at least get in the way, but pass protection, it's more than that. It's about diagnosing, reading blitzes when they happen, knowing where they're coming from. Sometimes that can be a bit rough. You can make up for a lack of size if you can study and anticipate. That's where Jaleel McLaughlin, for example, put in a lot of the work this offseason. And by doing that, he was able to make himself enough of an obstruction to where he could be out there. Sometimes it's about just getting in the way just long enough to be able to buy your quarterback time to get the ball off or take off and escape the pocket. So it's always it's not necessarily about going and laying the lumber on a guy. It's about just getting in the way. Audric Estime at his size should be able to get in the way, but again, it becomes a matter of reading where everything's coming from. If an opponent sees Estime in the backfield and they see him in the shotgun, they're going to try to confuse him. Maybe that's where you're doing you're doing a potential double-A gap blitz and then dropping those double-A gap blitzers that you cheat toward the line and then having the blitz come off the edge, and then you got to adjust to that. There's a lot of things involved with that. Ryan Adams saying, hope you have a Merry Christmas, Mace. Appreciate the content you and Cecil bring us. Appreciate all of you writing with us as well. Appreciate you watching this show here, Orange and Blue today, for a Christmas Eve, talking about the Broncos running game. And as Jacob says, you may need your running game to help your defense. Well, you're hoping to get back to full strength in the secondary by having Riley Moss back there. And certainly it's probably cutting Levi Wallace, in addition to maybe being an indication of some interest in Blake Watson, may also show some confidence in Riley Moss and where he stands health-wise as he comes back from that MCL injury that he had a few weeks ago. But the thing I'm worried about coverage-wise more, I'll say this, is I'm worried more about things between the hash marks. I'm worried about things short to intermediate. I'm not worried about the corners. Chris Abrams-Drain played well last week. And now if Riley Moss is back in there, he assumes more of a rotational role. But you found you can trust Chris Abrams-Drain and put him in your plans, perhaps as one of your 4 cornerbacks next year coming as you go forward. I'm a little worried about things between the hash marks. Justin Sternad certainly has been picked on recently at the linebacker spot. There's been some communication issues at times between the safeties and the linebackers. And if you're the Bengals, you're looking at this game, you may say, okay, Pat Surtain travels with Jamar Chase, which I've said is what the Broncos should do. How do you set things up across the middle? That's where you're talking about Andre Iosivas, the former Princeton receiver. It's where you're talking about Mike Gesicki, the tight end. It's where you're talking about T. Higgins there on some drag routes. Joe Burrow dropping 30. Bo got to keep up and winning a defensive touchdown. Well, I'll say this. Broncos have given up 30-plus 2 of the last 3 games. I wrote about it at denversports.com, comparing the December numbers compared with those of the previous 3 months. It's been a long December defensively for the Denver Broncos. Possible Badie activated for Saturday. The fact that he had full practice today and not limited, like I mentioned earlier on in the show, I think that's something that makes me think, we might be seeing Tyler Badie potentially there. They like him a lot, and certainly he was pretty dynamic when he was out there. So I can't blame the Broncos for maybe wanting to get Tyler Badie back. But the fact is, they have 21 days. If they want to take their time with Tyler Badie, they can take their time with him before bringing him back. So it's not the most urgent thing in the world to get him out there. But it's an option. We'll see. Well, we may have a better idea by Friday, but David Youngkin disagrees. I don't see Badie being back this week or even this season. If they didn't believe he could be back this season, they wouldn't have had him out there. And you almost wonder if with Badie, it's all right, one more game here, and then if you get to week 18 and you still need that dub to get in the playoffs and you're facing the Chiefs, and that's where you say, okay, we need every arrow in the quiver that we can find. And then you'd have to say he's back in there. When Weebs react, I hate when our team makes it for a team we hate. Come on, KC, beat the Steelers. Of course, yes, that's out there for tomorrow, Christmas Day football, or maybe today if you're watching this on Christmas morning. Kansas City taking on Pittsburgh, and yes, a Chiefs win wraps up the number 1 seed and means probably you'd see backups there in week 18 when the Chiefs come in. Certainly, Andy Reid has a history of resting starters when they've wrapped things up. So if the Chiefs have wrapped everything up, I do not expect to see Patrick Mahomes there in week 18. I don't expect to see Travis Kelce in week 18. So I think Badie plays this weekend, maybe week 18. Yep, we talked about that. We won't know if Sean won't run the ball. Yeah. He's got it. He knows what to do during the week. He's got it in his mind. Some well-designed run plays last week as well. The effort and the play design, it's all there. Just got to do it. It's simple. You just got to do it. You have to follow it through to the end. You have to trust your game plan. Sometimes what can happen is you get into the flow of the game and maybe you fall behind or maybe things kind of work against you and you say, okay, we have to do things differently. Or you see a stacked front and you say, okay, well, we got to counter this a different way. I get that. I understand that. But this may be a game where you have to be patient. Now, if you fall behind 14-0, unfortunately, I don't think we're going to see many runs, which is unfortunate. But maybe the way to run when you're down 14-0 is some end arounds to Marvin Mims. Maybe you're looking at draw plays. Think about, they weren't behind, but think about Indianapolis when they came in here on December the 15th. And they get in 3rd and long, and it doesn't stop them from doing a draw play to Jonathan Taylor. Now, I get it. Audric Estime, Jaleel McLaughlin, Tyler Badie, Blake Watson, Javonte Williams. Did I name everybody? McLaughlin, Badie, Williams, Estime, Watson. Okay, all 5. There's a good chance none of those guys are Jonathan Taylor. Okay? Good chance of that. does not mean that you don't try that. And the other thing is, if you've got a well-executed setup, if you're doing the right things up front, creating the holes, especially with someone like Estime, who appears to have good vision, show trust in that. Running the ball and keep away our best defense. Yep. All depends on the defense. Yep. Moss playing this week will be huge for the Broncos, even if he's not 100%. He will. Although Chris Abrams' drain can hold his own, no doubt, Riley Moss on T. Higgins, I like a little bit better than some of the alternatives. Orange and blue today on this Christmas Eve. And before we go, I want to tell a little story about Garett Bolles, or share a story from Garett Bolles. See, Bolles told us today that a few years ago, when Philip Lindsay was a Bronco, Philip Lindsay got bottles of wine, nice things for everybody else in the offensive line room. And for some reason, probably a joke, Philip Lindsay gave Garett Bolles a lump of coal. Lump of coal.
A lump of coal.
What did you do? Why did he give you that?
I think it was just a joke, man. But hey, I took it, put it in my barbecuer, and I made some s'mores out of it, so it was good.
How will Christmas morning be like at the Bolles household?
It'll be good, man. Having 3 kids now, I think the magic is still there, and it was great. I want to keep it as long as I can. I think it's, my son is getting a little bit older and he's enjoying it, but it's my daughters that melt my heart, man, and seeing them just enjoying it. We did Elf on the Shelf this year, so that was pretty magical, watching my kids, since December 1st, seeing different things that they bring them. So it's truly amazing for sure. It's fun to be a dad these time of the years.
That's really what it's all about right now. Garett Bolles looking forward to a wonderful Christmas morning with his family, but reflecting on the lump of coal that he got from Philip Lindsay a few years ago. Ryan says the Broncos mentioned Drew Sanders at edge. Do you see Sanders rotating with Sternad in the middle if Sternad continues? I could see that. I'd say that's somewhat possible right now. At the very least, I think you may see more things like you saw last week where he comes in with an A-gap blitz. Douglas Wall, I don't believe Jonathan Taylor could run well behind the Denver offense. Well, Broncos offensive line has a better run block win rates than the Indianapolis Colts, so I believe he could. Elite lineman. Yep. Look, objectively, the Broncos have a very good offensive line. I think the problem is when you see an offensive lineman get beat, when they're beat for a sack, for example, everyone focuses on that. Nobody focuses on all the times that they stop an elite edge. That's why numbers and data cut through it. None of your biz. What a cool human perspective. Elf on a shelf. Yeah. Oh, that's so cool with the kids is the elf on the shelf. Little magic at Christmas time. Makes everyone feel warm and fuzzy on the inside. So let's all go enjoy the holiday, however you celebrate it. Maybe you're just going to celebrate it by watching football. And if so, great. Whatever you do to commemorate the holiday, hope you have a wonderful day. I'll be out at Broncos on Wednesday. Coordinators will be talking. Team will be practicing. The work for preparing for the Bengals goes on. But I know for a lot of you, it's a chance to rest, relax, recuperate, time with family, time with friends, or maybe, hey, time alone if that suits you. Either way, no matter what, hope you have a Merry Christmas, Happy Hanukkah, Happy Kwanzaa, Happy Holidays, whatever you choose to commemorate here at this time of year. Enjoy the moments. And thanks for watching. And of course, if you want to give us a little Christmas gift, if you haven't yet subscribed yet, well, you can. You can like, comment, share, subscribe, hit that notification bell so that you never miss a vid. We're at 16,000. We appreciate you. We owe you a late night show coming up, but it doesn't mean we're not still seeking more people coming in and joining us here on Orange and Blue today. Merry Christmas. Merry Christmas from Louisiana. Merry Christmas to you too as well, Cornbread. When Weebs Reacts, Sharon, and everyone else watching this show. Hope you have a wonderful holiday. I'm not going to promise a show on Wednesday, but depends what I hear from the coordinators. Maybe something interesting worth talking about, or maybe a shorter show on Christmas Day. So take care. Thanks for watching. Hope you have a wonderful holiday wherever you are. Enjoy the football, and just remember.
Merry Christmas, everybody. Thanks for being here today.
Take care, everyone.